Chris and Josh and Joanna were like, oh, well, I think we are losing this idea of like, it's so hard to have a successful business, especially after the pandemic, especially in a city in Chicago where rent is so high. So this was kind of their answer to be like, let's make sure we're emphasizing how much is on the line and how stressed Sydney is. So that was what we were supposed to feel in this moment. It's just like a little bit of a car crash, like Sydney can't look away. It's so funny because this was one of the later things that we added to the episode. This wasn't originally scripted. There's supposed to be a different opening. It was supposed to start with, or actually, I don't know if it's the very beginning of the episode. We might have Alan on first for Carmi, but regardless, it wasn't scripted originally. It was something we came up with, or, Chris came up with later. Do you remember when they filmed that stuff, Meg, with Sid? Did we have that first, or did they go back and film it? I'm trying to remember.
They went back and filmed that. I think there was there were some other images of her eyes that were used elsewhere that we were like, can we repurpose this? But they were like, we can actually just grab these shots real quick and we'll get her closing the laptop. But yeah, this was completely fabricated and they had to go back and shoot that.
Yeah, so we were basically doing like screen grabs originally as we were just temping stuff to see if it worked. And I was talking to Josh Sr., one of the EPs, and he was like, what if it's like a kind of the overall idea? She's like looking through Google Maps and like seeing or Apple Maps and seeing all the different things that have closed. And we can kind of emphasize, how hard it is to start a business. Like I think going back to what we were saying before, this is one of those moments that if we hadn't been cutting while they were still shooting, we probably wouldn't have gone back just to get this one reshoot with Io. But as the episodes were coming together, Chris and Josh and Joanna were like, oh, well, I think we are losing this idea of like, it's so hard to have a successful business, especially after the pandemic, especially in a city in Chicago where rent is so high. So this was kind of their answer to be like, let's make sure we're emphasizing how much is on the line and how stressed Sydney is. And maybe that's affecting the other aspects of her life as she's trying to come up with a menu, as she's kind of deciding to take this plunge. Also thinking about, we know she's had a failed business before. Her Sheridan Road catering company did not succeed. So I think adding, especially to her, this feeling of like things are all going to fall apart also kind of started us off on this wedge between where Carmi's at in season 2 and Sydney. Sydney is like all in on the restaurant. She's so stressed about it. Whereas Carmi is kind of having this, love affair and, falling in love with Claire, which he needs for sure. Like all for Carmi getting out of the kitchen. But I think it just shows how these two characters are kind of like their priorities are splitting a little bit.
Bridgeport, known to be the neighborhood diner people counted on for the past 7 decades, is closing its doors for good.
Yesterday, the restaurant made the announcement that it would be closing permanently.
Everybody loves the food. They love the service. They love this restaurant.
This was something that was made basically entirely in the edit of just trying to get inside Sydney's head, showing her kind of scrolling through all these different things. Again, a beautiful track from JQ, our composer, to kind of add to this stress and using, I basically just found these beats and that could feel like the click, click, click as she's like going through. And I think everyone has that. I assume everyone has doom scrolled before and being like, oh, this isn't making me feel better, but I can't stop. So that was what we were supposed to feel in this moment. It's just like a little bit of a car crash, like Sydney can't look away. And that's a theme we return to, in the series as well. She goes and visits a bunch of different chefs later in this episode. And then later in maybe episode 5 or something like that, episode 9, she goes back and sees one of the restaurants has closed. So I think that was really just like a theme that we knew was referenced in the script, but by adding this to the beginning of episode 3, it really just emphasized it and made sure we understood that this big undertaking they're setting off on, there's no guarantee it will succeed. So many have failed before them. And just really, add to the stakes of what they were embarking on.
That have worked at the restaurant for decades. News came as a devastating story.